How did you know me after so long?
Why, I didn't.
No?
It's just I saw you staring at me and I didn't know who you were.
I'm sorry, I suppose I was. Are you in the habit of riding off in the rain with strangers?
It's the best way to make you leave.
Well, if I can ever work up the courage to ask you again, I'll send you a written warning first.
Oh, it wouldn't do you much good. I can't read.
Can you not?
No.
Well, that's something we shall have to remedy, isn't it?
Are you going to teach me to read then?
Well, if you like.
Aye?
And what language?
You're showing off now.
That's right. Are you impressed yet?
No. Why should I be?
Parce que chaque jour, j'ai pensé à toi.
Do that standing on your head and not be impressed.
Might kill the fly up, but I'll try, all right?
Oh, God, you certainly didn't learn any manners on your travels.
Well, the French and the Romans have far worse manners than I.
You've been to Rome?
Aye, Uncle took me on a pilgrimage.
What was it like?
Rien qui approchait ta beauté.
What does that mean?
Beautiful. But I belong here.
Good morning, men. Wow, we've known each other for 2 months, and that's again. Good morning, men. There we go. We've long. Yeah, right? Exactly. Top of the morning to you. Welcome. Again, I always say it every time, guys. You know, you guys are champions. Appreciate you being here. If you park your car outside, there was definitely frost on your windshield this morning, right? So it gets more and more difficult, but we're in session 7 tonight, this morning, excuse me. I don't know what time it is. So, Braveheart. How many of you have seen that movie? Literally everybody in the room. And, you know, that's like the quintessential movie for guys. I found out while studying this week, it's also a quintessential movie for females. So remember, guys, this is the epitome. Again, we're shooting for this. I mean, come on, Mel Gibson, that's a pretty high target. So we're shooting for this. So if you think about that character that Mel Gibson plays, he encompasses everything with Core of the Man. Take a look when we bring up this graphic of Core of a Man, and take a look that he, in fact, checks off all those boxes. He is a friend. He definitely has stickiness. Can you guys read that? Well, you guys have it on your books as well, on the cover of your books. You know, he's a student. He's definitely inquisitive. He's definitely a warrior filled with grit. You know, he's a leader and a protector, without question. How are we doing on ours? How are we doing on our evaluation of ourselves? He's definitely a lover, and he has that magnetism. That's what resonated with me, because we're going to talk about magnetism this morning. And he's definitely a mentor full of inspiration. You know, girls cry at Titanic, and men cry at Bravehearts. I'm in marketing, so I like to check the pulse of the consumers. And I do that a lot of times by looking at YouTube comments. So when I was studying for this, to talk to you guys about it this morning, I looked at some of the comments on YouTube on many of the clips in Bravehearts. Because, you know, we can stand up here and say, hey, this is what women want. This is what we want you to be. This is what God designed in you. Listen to some of the comments that were on some of the clips in Bravehearts. No matter how many times I watch this movie, I cry. I actually avoid watching it because I don't want to cry. Best movie ever. I look forward to a future life and being told this from a man. It most likely won't happen in this lifetime, but what a beautiful fantasy I hold on to. I get a warm feeling from this scene, so beautiful. And it's a woman that's actually sharing some of her feelings. What a beautiful discussion between a man and a woman, is another comment. I come apart when I see this every time. Yes, every time. Yay, I love the engagement part. It makes me happy, and I like to be happy. And then there was this exchange. I need a man like William Wallace in my life. The comment underneath that, impossible to find. Further comment, you can thank cultural Marxism or feminism for breeding this out of men. And the final comment, find a traditional Catholic man. So this morning we're going to talk about magnetism part 2. Remember, gents, if this is not you, if you don't have a wife, if you're looking for a wife, what I'm saying is this applies to everybody. So you can actually take a lot of what John's going to teach here and apply it to your life, whether you're searching for a wife, whether you have a wife, whether you've been married for 30-something years, 50-something years. You can apply this knowledge, what you're going to learn today and what you've been learning for the past 6 sessions. So at this time, please welcome my rabbi, John Bell.
So, were you magnetic this week? Did you practice? Did you get feedback from it? Did your wife, was she shocked? Was she surprised? That's what we're shooting for. And you know, Peter's admonition to us is live with your wife, or with women, live with your wife in an understanding way. Okay, that's what we're after. We're seeking to understand. And you know, I've heard men say, I can't understand women. I don't understand them. They're hard to figure out. Yes, they are. It's a combination. But you can never stop trying, because there are things that you do that unlock her heart. That's always, Peter would not have told us to do that if it was impossible. Obviously, you can't do it in your own strength, right? You have to do it as you are led in Scripture, as the Holy Spirit illuminates your heart. But what you want to be as an amazing man is making the effort, right? Making the effort. Let me quickly go through this definition again. No stops. Read it with me. A magnetic lover is a man who loves and leads his wife. He continually seeks to understand her and helps her sort things out. He practices the 3 kinds of love appropriately with her. He makes her safe and secure. He romances her for a lifetime. He brings out the best in her His magnetism grows so that he and his wife become one in body, soul, and spirit that reflects the Trinity and the love of Christ. All right? We got through the first two, right? We said first and foremost, you must be sticky. And then we said you must be inquisitive. And as a man leading your home, this is where being an amazing man, all of the dynamics come together, because they all come together on your wife. And if you take the 5 and you add them all up, you get magnetism. It's really the sum of the other 5. So let's talk about you must be gritty about your relationship. Now, when people hear gritty, they often think grainy, and it's not grainy. Don't be grainy with your wife in your relationship. Be gritty. What did we say gritty was? What is it to have true grit? True grit is choosing a goal, putting together a plan and strategy, and then seeing it through. A person with grit is someone who saw the project all the way to the finish. Here are 3 things you always have to remember. You have to hold on to these things in your heart. The day you fell in love. Do you remember that? Maybe it wasn't a day. Maybe it just kind of happened over time. Linda and I it's a long story, so I can't tell you, but our relationship happened by accident. I'll give you the bottom line on it. She was late for a youth group meeting. 5 minutes late. And if she hadn't been 5 minutes late, we might never have gotten together. And our relationship kind of grew over time. She just started writing me. I was in college and she was still in high school. And she started writing me. I still have all the letters. And they were just like friendship. The first few months, it was like reading a newspaper. There was nothing romantic about it. And basically what I've looked back on and realized is we became friends. I hadn't known her. We grew up together, but I hadn't known her because she's 2 years younger. But we became friends, and then slowly, probably over a matter of 5 or 6 months, our love grew, and I remember standing at her door and saying to her for the first time, "I love you." She didn't say anything back, by the way, which was kind of scary. Because you put that out there, that's a big matzo ball to put out there, right? But I remember that day. Then I remember the day I proposed to her. We were both in college at that point. And I took her up into an art classroom right after lunch. I said, "I want to show you this project that I'm working on." And I got up there and just the 2 of us, and I pulled out the engagement ring and I said, "Will you marry me?" That's another big matzo ball to put out there, isn't it? Thankfully, she said, "Yes, I will." And then, I do weddings, and one of the things I can't wait to see is when the bride comes in the back of the room, and just before the doors swing open and she's standing there, I look at her, but I look at the groom. Because his face is lit up. Right? You remember that? Don't ever forget those things. That's a treasure to you. Remember when you fell in love. Remember the day you proposed, and remember the day you got married. And She said, I do, and you said, I do. Why do you need grit? You need grit because marriage is risky business. It's risky business. You know that it's a 50% failure rate. What if I wanted to sell you a company or a product, and I said, this only works half the time? Would you buy that? No, because nobody gets married to get a divorce. But what you have to do is you have to have grit. You've got to see it through. I remember about 20 years ago, I was out in my front yard, and we lived right on the corner, and there was a kind of a busy street off to my right, and so cars it was a cut through. Cars would cut through there to avoid a light, or so they could go faster. And I remember this couple going by, and she was beautiful, and he was handsome and good looking, and they were in a red convertible. And I thought to myself, now, they're in love. They're in love. I don't know if that's true, by the way. I don't know if they were in love or not. It was a nice scene. But right after that, an old man came by, and he was pushing a wheelchair. And he was in his 70s, and his wife was in the wheelchair. And he was pushing her down the street. And I said to myself, that's true love. That's true love. I want to grow old with you, right? I want to be there. You need a growth mindset. You need a growth mindset. We've talked about a growth mindset. A growth mindset, there's two mindsets that people have in this world. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says, this is the way I am, and nothing's ever going to change. Here's one of my favorite quotes. My wife has been married to 5 different men, and I have been all of them. Why? Because I'm not the same. The current version of John Bell is not the same. Why? Because I've grown. I've grown. You don't ever want to say this to your wife. Well, this is the way I was when you married me. Dumbest statement in the world. Really? That's it? I remember counseling a couple. They had been married for about 10 years. And, typical fashion, they sit down, and I said, all right, let's hear your story. Who wants to go first? And she said, I will. And for the next 20 to 30 minutes, she poured her heart out about their marriage. She finally finished. I said, is that all you want to say? Yes. I said, okay, your turn. He said, I thought things were going pretty well. Now, let me tell you about this couple. So as we finished up, we had a good session. I thought we had a good session. As we finished up, I said, before you leave, would you guys like to give each other a hug? Because, physical touching is important. She said, I don't even want to be in the same room with him. Now, when they got married 10 years earlier, he was a star athlete, he was smart, he was good looking, and she actually had him on a pedestal. But do you know what happened? Over time, his magnetism eroded. His magnetism eroded. If I asked Linda, Would you rather have one big Valentine every year, a special day set aside for you, or would you rather have 365 small Valentines every day? You know what she'd take every time? 365 small Valentines. Every day treasuring her. And all that takes grit. Many women live with insecurity. One of the dominating emotions that men have is frustration. I've told you that before. I've traced all my anger, all my explosions over the course of my life to just being frustrated. With women, it's more fear and hurt. And you should be able to recognize when you hurt her. And you should be quick to repair. Quick to repair. Return to joy. One of the things when we have conflict, disagreement, I'll say, are you returning to joy? Because I'm really glad to be with you. Break a sweat, it's an obstacle course. Nobody said it would be easy, right? I had a couple I married about 6 months later. They came in for counseling because it wasn't going well. And he goes, here's what he said to me. He goes, it shouldn't be this hard. And I looked at him and I said, you're in the shallow end of the pool. It's going to get harder. That's why God gave you those shoulders. It's for carrying stuff. It's for doing hard things. Remember we said a few weeks ago with grit, life is supposed to be hard. If God wanted life to be easy, you could accept Jesus and immediately go to heaven, right? I mean, right? But this is an obstacle course. We're being prepared for something. So, break a sweat. Break a sweat. My daughter has a teenage daughter, 15. She called me and she said, Dad, adulting is tough. That's her phrase for growing up. Adulting is tough. I said, it's supposed to be tough, but I like being an adult. Put as much effort into keeping her as you did into getting her. And then look at it like this. Learning a woman is a journey of discovery. You know, Lynn and I have observed that our relationship, what lots of couples fight over, we find highly entertaining. I'll say to her when I don't understand something like, this is interesting. I've never even thought of something like that. And it's just constantly a journey of discovery. Number 5, you must be protective of her. We've already said, make her feel safe. I'm going to move through this quickly. You guys should get all this. Most women have endured their share of predators and abandonment. Luckily, there were no predators in Linda's life before I came along. Now, I was predatory at times with her, and I had to learn to be a gentle protector. I remember once we were arguing over something. We had a conflict, and we finally finished it, and she said, can I ask you one more question? I said, sure. She said, how come you always win? She said, how come you're always right? And in my head, I didn't say this out loud. I said, because I'm always right. And then the Spirit of God said, no, John, you're not always right. You just think you're always right. And then the thought, if I keep acting this way, I'm going to hurt this very kind woman. And it's going to diminish our relationship. And And from that time on, we're going to talk in the end about fighting fair. From that time on, I didn't always win. I remember we were in the middle of a argument at one time, and I said, "Time out." She said, "What?" I said, "I just want you to know I'm not going to let you win, but I'm rooting for you." You begin being protective by knowing where you're dangerous. Like, I know where I'm dangerous. So before I respond to something, because I can get frustrated, I just take a pause. Take a pause. Just stop. You may not know where you're dangerous, and that's called a blind spot. And by the way, that's where you need other guys. Every guy in this room needs 5 other guys. If not 5, at least 3. So I want you guys to come up here. Talked about this last week. Let me show you why you need guys. Just back to back, okay? There, and Jim here, okay? All right. First, I'm sorry. Jim, by yourself. I want to show them something. You step over the side. I'm going to move you back. Step here. I forgot this illustration. So I'm going to ask Jim to keep his eyes on me at all times, okay? You can't turn. You can't turn, right? There's a point where I'm out of his eyesight, right? Here, and it's called a blind spot. Now, go over here, guys. Back to back. Now watch. If Jim has a community, keep your eye on me. Keep your eye on me. What got eliminated? Blind spot. Thanks, guys. That's why you need guys. Because they'll see what you don't see, and they can help you. You can't do that by yourself. The opposite of strength is a fragile ego. And lots of guys have very fragile egos. Get checkups along the way. How are we doing? How's our relationship? When's the last time you asked her? How's our relationship going? Ask it like this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing as a husband? How am I doing as a lover? How are we doing in our marriage? Know how to repair, return to joy. We already talked about that. Never abandon her. That's what women want. They want to never be abandoned. I don't know if this is not a great movie. In fact, it's a crummy movie. It's called Taken. It's very predictable. It's Liam Neeson kind of capturing, the superhero kind of this character, bigger than life, like Jason Bourne. It's his version of like Jason Bourne. But there is a scene that I like in that first movie where he finally is able to rescue his daughter. And you know what she says? You came for me. You came for me. Be transparent and answer all her questions. 6, you must be inspirational to her. Breathe life into her. A friend of mine, his wife said to him one day, she said, you bring your A game to work, you bring it to our kids. You take care of a lot of needs, and you always bring your A game, except you don't bring your A game to me. Is she getting the best of you? Here's a simple one. Tithe to your wife. Tithe to your wife. I think it's about 12 hours a week. Tithe to your wife. So you should be able to measure or put it on the calendar. This is our time together. This is my time I'm giving to you. Don't be ignorant, unskilled, or resentful. Remember, she's a girl. I had another friend, he married a tomboy because he didn't want to have to go through all the stuff. So he thought, I'll marry a tomboy. So he married a tomboy, and guess what? She turned out to be a girl. And he said to her once, he goes, you know, when I married you, this is what I thought. She goes, I'm a girl. I'm a girl. What does that mean? Doesn't mean she's less, inferior, any of those things. She is, it's the difference between stoneware and fine china. And in that illustration, you're stoneware. Always give her hope. Always, fill her sails. We'll get through it. We'll make it. We're gonna see this through. Here's some magic words. If you can remember these, you'll score. All right? Here's the first one. She tells you something that's going on in her life, and it's a long story, and she finishes, and you're trying to connect the dots even as she's talking to you, and she finishes, and you look at her and say, tell me more. Tell me more. Here's one. You're probably right. You're probably right. Is there anything else you want to tell me? And then this one, that can wait. I want to share this problem with you. So you got something else you should be doing or you need to be doing, and you say, you know what, that can wait. I want to share this problem with you. 3 loves of marriage. Number 7, eros. Eros is that attraction. It could be mental. Usually it's physical, but it's the word erotica. It's where sex comes from. God has put that kind of ability to love inside of you, and that's a good thing. You should keep the eros. Then phileo is friendship, mutuality. In the Song of Solomon, the lover, calls his love, he calls her his sister. You know, your wife is also your sister. You should remember that. I have a simple rule for women. Older women, I treat them like my mother. Younger women, I treat them like my daughter. And women of the same age, I treat them like my sisters, including my wife. And so we develop our friendship. John Gottman, who's a specialist in marriage, he says the basis of good marriages is really friendship. And then finally, agape. Agape. This is the kind of love that God has for us. In the Old Testament, it is chesed. And this arises out of character. This means when you say, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, you're making a promise. And if you don't have the character to back that up, it's a wasted promise. You know what they used to call dating? Courting. Remember that? Anybody remember that? It was a courtship. You know why they called it courting? Because the two of you were getting to know each other, because at the end of the courtship, you were going to make a determination. And the determination was, is this person trustworthy enough to make a commitment to me and keep it? Finally, remember this, I say this to women. You know, you are asked, and the world doesn't like this at all. You are asked to submit, and I actually use the word entrust. You are asked to entrust yourself to your husband so that he is the head of the home. Now, the head of the home doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want to do, but it means that if Jesus comes to the front door, he's going to ask for the man of the house. It means that if there's a noise in the night, you don't say to your wife, honey, would you go see what that is? But here's what that does. As Jesus submitted to the Father, entrusted himself to the Father, she's entrusting herself to you. And the Father would never abuse the Son. So he's entrusting himself. And you know what that represents? That represents the oneness of God. And you know that God is called one, and a husband and a wife are called one. And it's the same Hebrew word. So when she does that, when she entrusts herself that way, she represents the unity of God. What do you represent? You represent the love of Christ. What does that mean? Christ gave himself up for his bride. And that's what you're asked to do. You should be willing to take a bullet for your wife anytime there's danger. And when you do that, you represent the love of Christ. And then finally, make sure you have a fair fight. You know, no hitting below the belt. None of those things. No nasty words. And remember, everybody has a different fighting style. You know, my fighting style, which I've had to overcome, is win. Linda's fighting style is yield. Right? She's had to learn another fighting style. But we fight fair. We don't call each other names. We don't raise our voices. You know, we identify the problem. And I would say a fair fight starts with, what are we fighting about? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it matter? Right? Once you agree on the problem, then work at the solution. Okay, are we both agreed this is the problem? Yeah, this is the problem. Okay, what are possible solutions? Well, this is what I think we should do. All right? What do you think we should do? This is what I think we should do. Okay. Are there any other solutions besides these two? Are we so brilliant that we came up with the only two solutions in the world to this problem? All right? And the moment you start working on the problem together, now you're in a win-win situation and you're both on the same team. All right? Be magnetic, guys. Be magnetic. It's all the little things you do every day that add up. Okay?
Thanks, John. Yeah, a lot of good information there. So here's my question. And this is a question for me, too. Can we learn? Can we still learn? You know, I talk to a lot of guys, and it seems to me sometimes, and I asked John this just yesterday, is there a point where we just dust our feet off and say, you know what? I've been talking to you for 20 years. Can you learn? And then I ask myself, can I learn? So John says, you know what? Don't give up on him. I didn't want to hear that, but that's the truth. So there's a lot of bad information. I say that all the time, but there's a lot of bad information out there. And then I wonder, is that because we want bad information? I used to be in the news business a long time ago. There's a new news broadcast going on, and it's done out of here in Chicago. It's called News Nation, and it's unbiased news. Unbiased. They're going to give you, this is what Biden did today, this is what the president did today, no commentary. Okay? It's doing horrible in the ratings. Nobody wants that. It's, can we learn? Can we learn? And I watch it, and then I Google, and I want to see the ratings, and it's like, no one's watching this. And it's a high-quality broadcast. Everyone says, yeah, I'm tired of the bias in Fox. I'm tired of the bias in CNN. But they don't watch just something that's unbiased. Can we learn? You know, I look back and I say, this is a couple of things. I remember I would never wear a seatbelt. I just wouldn't wear it. My excuse was, I'm too big to be harnessed in. And I supported that by saying, I can't even go on one of those rides at Great America. I just don't fit in the thing. So I was driving, and yeah, you guessed it. the Mars lights goes on. And in Naperville, they pulled me over on 75th. And I tried to put on the charm, but he wasn't taking any of it, driver's license and registration, and he wrote me a ticket. I think it was like a $200 ticket. And back then I was a little boastful. I said, nothing, I'll just pay for it. About 3 weeks later, Mars lights go on again. And sure enough, I got another ticket. From that day forward, I wear my seatbelt. So I learned. You know, some people say it's the pursuit of pleasure or the avoidance of pain. How are you going to learn? My wife is chronically late. Chronically late. She was late for our wedding. She really was. And everyone's like, oh, she's not going to show up. And I'm like, this is Kathy. She's late. John, many, many years ago, did her mom's funeral. And you know, John and I have known we've known each other for a long time. And he was there all by himself. I wasn't there. My wife wasn't there. We pull up, and John's like, it's supposed to be at 9 o'clock. I go, John, it's my wife. Remember that? She was late. So here's what I've learned. Either I accept that, or we end up in a fight. So if you're going to invite me to your house, don't ask me to bring appetizers. We'll bring the dessert. I learned. We're not going to be there for the appetizers. That's what we all have to do. We have to take a look and say, this is my life. Like John says, we don't yell. I'm Italian. We yell. It's just that. It works for him the way they do it, but my wife has learned not to yell back, because as an Italian, when you yell back at me, I yell louder at you. And that's just the way it is. You know, we have guests over sometimes for the entire family, and they're like, you guys just yell all the time. And we're like, we're just talking. It's just how we talk. Can you learn? So this entire series, we've had some really gems. You know, John has been doing this a long time. We go back, there used to be a program called In Search for Authentic Manhood. We did that together. And then there's another series that we did called Brave Hearts, believe it or not. I said to myself, when I say Brave Heart, it's the movie singular. The program we did was Brave Hearts, and Mark Elstrand was in there, and there's been a lot of guys that continue this. And then John came up with some gems of his own, and I believe inspired by the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, this is even better, using brain science and using all the years of experience and his coaching and his marital counseling, all those sessions. So we've got a lot of information, and we've presented a lot of information. Now you guys have to process this information, and this is what this time is for. You know, John said it's ideally if you have 5 guys. Man, that's hard. You know, then he said, okay, we could do it with 3. But that blind spot metaphor was really a lot of wisdom there. Isn't it great to say, you got my back? You know, that's basically what we saw just there. And isn't it great to just trust, knowing that he's got my back? So if you don't have those guys yet, it's time to try to find a couple of guys that are worthy of that. And that's going to be, you know, that's not going to be an easy thing. But right now you've got some great guys in this room, and you've been meeting with them and discussing things for almost 2 months now. So this is the time where you get together. This is the time where you talk about what we just learned today and what we learned throughout this series, and try to connect and try to share that wisdom. You know, like John talked about when he and Linda have a discussion. This is a solution. Here's a solution. You know, there's 3 gathered there. There's John, Linda, and then there's the Holy Spirit there. And that happens here as well. So use this time well. Don't forget about your guys that you have to connect with. Don't put it on the back burner, because I've had my group for 28 years now. And we lost one guy, and we didn't replace him. So that's difficult. So you guys have that moments now. Take advantage of it. Again, you guys are champions. Have a great week ahead. I appreciate it.